Robert was driving alone on a long stretch of highway when he saw someone standing on the shoulder. A woman. The problem? According to the highway patrol, she was never there. And what happened next? No one has ever been able to explain. But before we continue, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is right now. I want to see how far these stories are reaching. There are people who move through life without making noise. No complaints. No drama. No attention. They wake up early, do what needs to be done, and come back home without asking for anything. Robert was exactly that kind of man. 44 years old. Sales representative for industrial equipment. Not the kind of job anyone gets excited about hearing, but the kind that quietly keeps everything running. Bills paid. Routine stable. Life predictable. His week always started the same. Monday morning. Before sunrise. Strong coffee. Keys in hand. Engine on. And then, the road. 2 hours sometimes. For on other days. Depends on the client. Depends on the deal. The highway wasn't just part of his job. It was his life. The passenger seat was always cluttered. Folders. Catalogs. Papers sliding with every turn. The cup holder? Always filled with coffee that had gone cold hours ago. The truck smelled like old leather and long days. At work, Robert was the easiest employee to manage. Always on time. Always prepared. Never complaining. Clients trusted him. Coworkers liked him. But no one could say they knew him. He kept things surface level. Polite with everyone. Close to no one. But there was something about Robert that almost nobody knew. Something that had changed everything. A few years earlier, he lost his mother. And with her, two things disappeared. The first was his faith. Not in a dramatic way. No anger. No rebellion. He didn't walk away from God. He just stopped. Like when you slowly stop calling someone. Not because of a fight, but because life gets in the way. And one day you realize, it's been too long. That's what happened with Robert. With God, he simply stopped. The second thing that changed was his father. His mother had been the center of everything. The one who called. The one who reminded. The one who gathered everyone together. When she was gone, the family didn't fall apart with noise. It just drifted. His father stayed on one side. Robert stayed on the other. No fights. No arguments. Just silence. And the longer it lasted, the heavier it became. You know that feeling. When you should call. You should say something. But every day that passes makes it harder. That was Robert's life. Work. Road. Home. Repeat. And he told himself, that was enough. That Tuesday started like every other day. He left before 7. Coffee in the holder. Radio playing more ads than music. The sun already strong for that hour. One of those mornings that promises heat before noon. He had a meeting. Big client. Big opportunity. While driving, he ran through everything in his head. Prices. Delivery times. Objections. What to say. When to say it. The highway stretched ahead. Long straight. Endless. The kind of road where your body drives. And your mind goes somewhere else. He passed his usual gas station. Didn't stop. He was ahead of schedule. Wanted to arrive early. He adjusted the air conditioning. Took a sip of his now lukewarm coffee. Changed the radio station. Relaxed back into his seat. Everything was normal. Completely normal. Until it wasn't. A scent. Roses. Strong. Sharp. Impossible. Robert frowned. Looked around. Dashboard. Seats. Floor. Nothing. Windows closed. No flowers. No reason. But the smell was real. Not subtle. Not faint. It was as if someone had placed a fresh bouquet right next to him. He cracked the window open. Hot air rushed in. The scent didn't change. Didn't fade. Didn't make sense. After a few seconds, he shook his head. Ignored it. Went back to thinking about the meeting. And just like that, the scent disappeared. As if it had never been there. Robert forgot about it almost instantly. The road continued. Same landscape. Brush on both sides. Occasional distant farm. Nothing unusual. Until he saw it. On the left shoulder. At first. Just a shape. A figure. Someone standing. He assumed it was normal. A broken down car. Flat tire. Someone waiting for help. But there was no car. No vehicle. Nothing. Just a woman. Standing still. Wearing a blue cloak. At highway speed, things pass fast. Appear. Disappear. Gone. But something about her didn't let go. It wasn't just the clothing. It was the way she stood. She wasn't waving. Wasn't looking around. Wasn't on the phone. Her body was turned directly toward him. And in that split second, it felt like she was warning him. Robert didn't think. He reacted. His hands yanked the wheel to the right. Hard. Sudden. The truck swerved. Crossed the lane. The right tire left the asphalt first. Then the rear. The sound changed instantly. From smooth highway hum to dirt, gravel, brush scraping metal. And at that exact moment, a deer exploded into the road from the left. Huge. Fast. Out of nowhere. If Robert had stayed in his lane, he would have hit it directly. At that speed. With an animal that size. It wouldn't have ended well. But he had already turned. The truck slid down the embankment. Not deep, but enough. He slammed the brakes. The wheels locked. The truck skidded. Then stopped. Silence. Folders scattered everywhere. Coffee spilled. Dust settling slowly in the air. Robert didn't move. His hands were still gripping the steering wheel. Tight. His heart pounded so hard. He could feel it in his throat. And in that moment, one question echoed in his mind. Why did I turn before I even saw the deer? The pickup was stuck halfway down the embankment. Dust still floated in the air, slowly settling over the hood. Silence. Robert sat there for a second longer than he should have. Alive. Not a scratch. He exhaled slowly. And that's when it hit him. His hands started shaking. Not during the moment. After. That deep, uncontrollable tremor that comes when your body finally understands. You almost didn't make it. He pushed the door open. Stepped out. His legs felt unstable, like they didn't fully belong to him. He leaned forward, hands on his knees. Breathed in. Once. Twice. Hey, you okay? The voice came from above. Robert looked up. At the edge of the road, standing over the embankment, a highway patrol officer. I'm in one piece, Robert answered, his voice still uneven. The officer walked down toward him, boots crunching on loose dirt. He looked at the truck, then back at Robert. I saw everything, the officer said. I was right behind you. Saw you swerve, saw the deer cross. He gave a short nod. Man, you got lucky. Lucky. Robert ran a hand over his face. His heart was still beating too fast. Did you see the woman? Robert asked. The officer stopped. Looked at him. What woman? Robert swallowed. The one on the shoulder. Left side before the deer. He hesitated. Blue cloak. The officer's expression shifted. Confusion. Friend, he said slowly. I was right behind you. Same lane. Same view. A pause. I saw the deer. I saw you go off the road. Another pause. But there was nobody on that shoulder. Robert felt something tighten inside his chest. There was, he insisted, quieter now. She was standing there, looking at me. The officer studied him for a few seconds. Not judging. Just trying to understand. Look, the officer said carefully, I get it. That was a big scare. But I'm telling you what I saw. Another pause. There was no one there. Robert looked down at the dirt beneath his feet. His hands were still trembling. You're sure? He asked, even though he already knew the answer. I'm sure, the officer replied. No car. No person. Nothing. Silence stretched between them. The officer stepped back, reaching for his radio. I'll call a tow truck. You're not driving this out of here. Robert nodded. Didn't argue. Didn't speak. While they waited, he sat at the edge of the embankment. The road above looked exactly the same as it always did. Cars passing. Wind moving lightly across the asphalt. Like nothing had happened. The officer came back after the call. Need medical attention? He asked. No, Robert said. I'm fine. Physically, at least. The tow truck arrived. Chains clanked. Metal groaned. The pickup was dragged back onto the road. But it wasn't going anywhere. Before leaving, the officer looked at him one more time. I've driven this route for years, he said. Deer jump out. It happens. He paused. But the way you reacted. He shook his head slightly. I've never seen anyone move that fast. Another pause. It's like you already knew it was coming. Robert looked at him. For a moment. He almost said it. The woman told me. But the words never left his mouth. He just nodded. Yeah. The meeting was canceled. The company notified. The pickup sent to the shop. Robert got a ride back. Back seat. Window view. Phone off. Messages piled up. Didn't matter. He just stared outside. At the same road he drove every day. But now it looked different. Have you ever had that? When something happens so fast, you don't understand it in the moment. But later, it replays. Slower. Clearer. And every time you replay it, you notice something new. That's what happened to Robert. Scent of roses. The woman. The turn. The deer. The officer. Over and over. He tried to explain it. Fatigue. Stress. Sunlight reflection. But nothing fit. He had been calm. The sun had been on the opposite side. There was always something missing. One piece that didn't belong. Why did he see her? Why didn't the officer? And why? Did his reaction match perfectly what needed to happen? He got home in the early afternoon, dropped the keys on the table, sat on the couch, and just stared. Have you ever experienced something that saved your life before you even understood you were in danger? The next day, he went back to work. Rental car. Same routine. At lunch, he told a coworker what happened. The deer. The swerve. The crash. He didn't mention the woman. He almost did. The words came to the edge of his mouth, but stopped. How would it sound? I saw someone no one else saw, and she saved me. It didn't sound real. It sounded like something else. So he didn't say it. Man, you got lucky, the coworker said. Yeah, Robert answered. But he didn't believe that anymore. Days passed. The pickup came back from the shop. The paint on the side didn't match perfectly. Every time he looked at it, he remembered. And every time he drove that stretch of highway, his eyes went to the left shoulder. Searching. Nothing. Always nothing. One night, he sat alone in his living room. Late. Quiet. Dinner finished. No TV. No phone. Just silence. And then, without warning, his mother came to mind. Not pain. Not grief. Something softer. Her face. Her voice. She had been a woman of faith. The kind who prayed every night. The kind who spoke to the Virgin Mary like she was sitting right there. Robert had grown up watching that. Rosary beads sliding through her fingers. Soft whispered prayers filling the room. It had always been normal. Routine. Like turning on the lights. Before every trip, she would hold his face, look into his eyes, and say the same thing. The Virgin Mary will take care of you, my son. Every time. Without fail. Back then, it meant nothing. Just something mothers say. But now, sitting alone on that couch, those words came back. Different. He rubbed his eyes. Shook his head. No, he wasn't going there. He was a rational man. Practical. Grounded. But the thought didn't leave. A woman. Blue cloak. On the shoulder. At the exact moment he needed it. And slowly, something else appeared. Not certainty. Not belief. Just a question. And something quieter. Something unfamiliar. Something he hadn't felt in years. What if? Then his father came to mind. It had been a long time since they had spoken. So long that the idea of calling him now felt strange. Awkward. Almost impossible. What would he even say? Hi, Dad. How are you? After so much silence, it sounded fake. But that night, sitting alone on the couch, with the memory of his mother in his mind and the image of the woman on the highway still refusing to leave, Robert picked up his phone. He opened his contacts, scrolled to his father's name, and stopped. The last call between them was months ago, maybe longer. Robert didn't even remember anymore. His finger hovered over the call button. You know that feeling? That quiet battle between wanting to do the right thing and being afraid to do it. Afraid he won't answer. Afraid he will. And if he does, then what? How do you begin a conversation after years of silence? Dad, I'm calling because I saw a woman in a blue cloak on the highway, and it made me think of Mom. How do you say something like that? Robert sat there for 5 minutes, phone in hand, heart beating fast. Then he locked the screen, put the phone away. Not today. He turned off the living room light and went to bed. But when an idea truly gets inside your mind, it doesn't leave. 2 weeks later, Robert was sitting in a client's parking lot. The meeting had gone well. The order was closed. The commission was guaranteed. It was the kind of moment when you want to call someone and share the news. Before, he would have called his mother. She would have been happy. She would have told him she was proud. She would have asked if he had eaten lunch. Then she would have reminded him to be careful on the road. And at the end, she would have said the same phrase. Always the same phrase. Robert sat behind the wheel, sunlight pouring through the windshield. Everything looked normal. But nothing had felt normal since that day on the highway. He picked up his phone, opened his contacts, stopped at his father's name. The photo was old. A Sunday barbecue from when his mother was still alive. His father smiling. His mother beside him. Robert stared at it for a long time. Then he pressed call. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Robert almost hung up. Then, hello. Robert froze. Dad, it's Robert. Silence. Not angry silence. Not cold silence. Surprised silence. The kind that lasts only a few seconds, but feels much longer. Robert, his father said. and his voice trembled slightly. "Yeah," Robert answered. "It's me." He heard movement on the other end. A chair shifting. Maybe his father had sat down. "It's been a while, son." "It has." And then silence returned. But this time, it felt different. Not the silence of people with nothing to say. The silence of people with too much to say and no idea where to begin. Robert took a breath. "Dad, something happened to me on the highway a couple weeks ago. I wanted to tell you." His father's voice softened. "Go ahead." And there was something in that tone. He wasn't rushing him. He wasn't going anywhere. He was ready to listen. So Robert told him everything. The scent of roses inside the truck. The woman on the shoulder. The blue cloak. The way she seemed to be warning him. The steering wheel turning right. The deer. The embankment. The patrol officer who had seen the deer, but not the woman. When Robert finished, his father didn't answer right away. Then, quietly, he said, "Your mother always said the Virgin Mary would take care of you." Robert closed his eyes. Those words. His mother's words. He had heard them hundreds of times before. But now, coming from his father's mouth after everything that had happened, they carried a weight he was not ready for. And then it all came. The grief. The silence. The years. Robert lowered his forehead onto the steering wheel, the phone pressed to his ear. He couldn't speak. He didn't need to. Because he knew his father was crying too. For the first time in a long time, father and son were together again. After a while, Robert swallowed hard. "I should have called sooner, Dad." His father answered softly. "Me too, son. Me too." And that was it. Simple. Two men who had let too much time pass. Finally stopped waiting for the perfect moment. Before they hung up, his father said, "Call me again." "I will," Robert said. And this time, he knew he meant it. You know what's strange? When stories like this are told, it can sound like everything changes overnight. Like one phone call fixes years of distance. But life doesn't usually work that way. Robert didn't suddenly become a completely different person. He didn't start going to church every Sunday. He didn't put a statue of the Virgin Mary in his house. The change was quieter than that. Slower. Almost invisible. The next week, he called his father again. Just 5 minutes. "Hi, Dad. How are you? I'm on the road and thought of you." "I'm good, son. Be careful out there." Nothing dramatic. But for two men who had barely spoken in years, it meant everything. The third week, his father called first. Robert was driving when his father's name appeared on the screen, and something warm moved through his chest. Someone was thinking about him. "Hi, Dad." "Hi, son. I just wanted to know if you ate today. You're always on the road, and that gas station food is no good." Robert laughed. Really laughed. "I ate, Dad. I stopped at that restaurant Mom liked near the highway exit." "I remember," his father said. "She always ordered the chicken." "Yeah," Robert said. "I ordered the same." A month after that first call, Robert drove to visit his father on a Sunday. The house where he grew up looked almost the same. A little more faded. The garden not as full of flowers. But still home. His father opened the door before Robert could ring the bell. He had been waiting. Coffee was already made. And when Robert saw him standing there, he understood something he had never allowed himself to see before. His father was alone too. Just like him. Living on autopilot. They hugged. It was awkward at first. Stiff. Unpracticed. But it was a hug. The first in years. They sat in the kitchen and talked all afternoon. Work. The house. The neighbors. Old stories. They laughed. Really laughed. And not once did they discuss why they had gone so long without speaking. They didn't need to. They were there now. That was what mattered. Because when people start talking again, it isn't always the deep confessions that heal things. Sometimes it's the small words. "I'm good. Be careful on the road. Call me when you get there." The simple things Robert's mother used to say. His co-workers noticed the difference before Robert did. He was lighter. Warmer. He started eating lunch with the crew instead of sitting alone in his pickup. He asked people how they were doing and actually listened to the answer. In meetings, he began telling small stories from the road. Nothing deeply personal. Just little things. But before, Robert never shared anything. One co-worker finally said at lunch, "You're different, Robert. Did something happen?" Robert smiled. "Nothing major. I just started talking to my father again." The co-worker didn't understand how that could change a person. But Robert did. Because it wasn't only about his father. It was about everything. It was about no longer living life on autopilot. It was about paying attention. It was about remembering that the people around you exist. And that you can be part of their lives. And they can be part of yours. Robert never told the full story to anyone except his father. Not the scent of roses. Not the woman in blue. Not the patrol officer who saw everything except her. He kept that part close. Not because he was ashamed. Because it was his. Something personal. Something he couldn't fully explain. And maybe that was why it mattered. Sometimes, when he drove and passed a car stopped on the shoulder, his heart still jumped for a second. His eyes would search. But it was always just a person changing a tire. A driver checking an engine. Never her. What Robert knows is this. On that day, on that highway, something made him turn the wheel at the exact second he needed to. Someone the patrol officer behind him did not see. Coincidence? Maybe. Or maybe it was something his mother had known her whole life. And Robert was only beginning to understand. He still isn't completely sure. And honestly, he stopped needing to be. Because maybe the most important part of the story isn't whether Robert can explain the woman on the shoulder. Maybe the most important part is what happened afterward. The call. The weekly conversations. The father and son who found each other again. The family that had been slowly falling apart. And somehow came back together. And it all began on a highway. With a scent that made no sense. A woman no one else saw. And a steering wheel that turned right at the perfect moment. Before we finish, I want to invite you to join our Virgin Mary prayer community, with people from around the world united in faith and prayer. If you feel in your heart the desire to be part of this chain, click the button below, become a channel member, and come pray with us. And if you stayed until the end of Robert's story, write one word in the comments. Highway. The place where everything changed. The place where Robert saw someone nobody else saw. And the place where his life began to turn back toward what mattered. Every time I read highway in the comments, I'll know one more person still believes miracles can happen. If this story touched your heart, subscribe and turn on notifications. Share in the comments a miracle you have witnessed or experienced. And send this video to someone who needs hope today. May the Virgin Mary continue to bless and protect you and your family. Amen.